Hey, everybody. So, our next guest on Street You Grew Up On is somebody that I really, really love. He was hinted on as a guest for season two, even before we started filming season two, because lots of people requested that we talk to this man about the street that he grew up on. You may have even seen him in the video that I did for Google Workspace, where he talks about setting the vibe and the feel for this season.
You know what? For season two, I feel like the set should have a comfy, cozy, chill kind of vibe.
You need this. Turn to the Google slide.
Oh, Google Workspace has it handled. Thanks, Dad.
You got it, kid.
This guy is a dynamo. He's amazing. He is the dad jokester, the best, the best, the best. Welcome, my dad, Earl Washington.
Hey, kid.
I'm really excited to have you on the street you grew up on. We started this series because, as you know, my production company is named after the street in the Bronx that your wife grew up on, Simpson Street.
Yes.
And I wanted to be able to talk to people that I love and admire and respect about the streets that they grew up on. This interview was highly requested. Last season, a lot of people wanted me to talk to you because I talked to Mom about Simpson Street, and they wanted me to talk to you about the street that you grew up on. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
So the first thing I like to do to find out the name, even though I know, but our audience doesn't know, the name of the street you grew up on, is for you to tell me your sexy alter ego name, otherwise known as your porn name. And that is the name of your first pet and then the street that you grew up on. So will you tell us all your porn name?
Josie Monument. That's it.
My Josie?
You're Josie because I never had a pet.
Growing up, you guys never had any pets at all.
Nothing at all. I was the pet.
Who fed you and who walked you?
Well, that was a choice between my sister and my mom and occasionally my dad. But we never had a pet.
Was it Monument Street, Avenue, Place? What was it?
Monument Walk,
Monument Walk.
apartment 4E.
For E as in Earl.
Right, Fort Greene Projects. Tough neighborhood.
Tell me about Monument Walk. Were there a lot of buildings on Monument Walk? Tell me about the projects.
I think that there were probably 15 buildings to the project in Fort Greene. My building had 11 stories, which was just unbelievable.
Who lived in the apartment? Who lived in 4E?
My dad, Samuel, my mom, Lorraine, commonly known to her friends as LT, and my sister, Claudel,
Why LT? What was her middle name?
Lorraine Turpin.
Lorraine Turpin. Was her maiden name?
That was her maiden name.
Was your sister older or younger?
Older, she was a friend of my wife.
Yeah, they went to high school together.
Yeah, when I was the younger teenage.
Well, you guys were teenagers at the same time. It wasn't like she was taking advantage of you.
No, that's not how I like the story to be remembered.
We try to traffic in truth on the street you grew up on.
Oh, okay. Anyway,
Did you and your sister share a room or did you each have your own room?
no, no. I had my own room. She had her own room. We were very, very fortunate. We had a 3-bedroom apartment, which is pretty much unheard of nowadays.
In the projects,
In
you
the
mean?
projects, projects are great. They have flat walls. They have an incinerator right down the hallway, laundry in the basement. What else can you ask for?
You mentioned having an incinerator down the hallway, and it reminded me, you're actually sitting in the apartment that I grew up in. So as you're talking about the street that you grew up on, you're speaking from the street that I grew up on. And we also had an incinerator down the hallway and a laundry room in the basement.
That is correct.
Tell me more about your bedroom. Since you had your own room, what was that room like on Monument?
My room which was on the fourth floor, as you know, looked out on the only tree in Brooklyn.
Not in the whole borough of Brooklyn, but you mean the only tree in the Fort Greene projects?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
Okay.
sounds right.
Okay.
That tree was almost level with my room. And I think I probably killed that tree.
How?
I threw up on it a lot when I was learning how to drink. Well, I was learning how to drink. I couldn't go to the bathroom. My parents would kill me.
What else could you see outside that window other than that poor tree?
I could see the monkey bars.
Was there a playground in the center of Fort Greene projects?
Yes. And there was a place in Fort Greene Care called Paradise. And at night, this is where the older people, like my sister's crew, would go and sit and talk to the young men who were the older guys.
Mm,
And they called it Paradise,
because
you
that's
know.
where they would go to flirt and meet and hang out.
Yes. I mean, I didn't know what they were doing over there, but, I knew that I wasn't supposed to go over there.
Mm.
So they thought, you know. And we had a center care that was really so super. I mean, I couldn't get in because I was too young.
Like a community center?
Yes. And the guy who ran the center was a gentleman by the name of Phil Cox, who was a teacher I later learned at Boys High School.
Which is where you went to high school.
That is correct, but we did very bad things to his vehicle.
Oh no.
I'm still in the witness protection program on that one.
We've had people confess all kinds of childhood debauchery on this show, so you can be as honest as you want to be.
Really?
Yes, Jimmy Kimmel admitted to some pretty good crimes.
Anyway, I did go to Boys High School, and I did meet up with Phil Cox, and he did give me a forearm in the chest just because he knew that I did something. He didn't know what I did, but he knew that I was guilty of something, and so he just, boom, the first time I went to gym class. He later became a really good fan and cheerleader of mine. He really did.
Were there a lot of people from Fort Greene projects who went to Boys High?
A handful, yeah, yeah. Those people that did really became very, very good friends and very, very close. But the High was a really special place. The athletic teams were probably the best in the city, and in some cases, the best in the nation, which is another story altogether.
You did a lot of running of track and field. Did you have medals or
Yes,
um, statues, like awards? Were those in your room or did you keep them somewhere else?
they were in my room.
Mm.
And that was one of the wonderful things about my room. You know, we didn't have the option of locking a door. There were
Mm.
some rules in that household that you certainly did not break. One of them was really about my sister, being the younger person when I was out, and her job was to make sure that she brought me home. I
Mm.
mean, that was the deal. She could not get into the house without me.
What were some of the other rules in your house?
You really never talked back to your mom or your dad.
Of course.
I tried that when I was about 14, standing up to my dad.
Yeah.
Worst thing in the world I could have done, you know. There are some dumb things you do. That was one of them. Other than that, we ate dinner on Sunday together.
Mm. Who cooked that dinner?
Probably my dad. My dad was a much better cook than
What kinds of things did your dad cook?
He made rice.
Hmm.
He could make the best rice in the world.
Is there a smell, a particular smell that reminds you of apartment 4E?
My mom wore some of the nicest smelling
She
perfumes.
had a lot of perfumes. She really collected perfumes, right?
She really
Yeah.
did. Oh man. I mean, she just smelled good and she smelled expensive.
Mm.
Obviously my dad was captivated by her odor and looks and, he gave her whatever she wanted. You know, he spoiled her. She loved it.
She loved kind of receiving gifts from him.
She loved receiving gifts. As I said, my mom was spoiled. I mean, she was just, she was spoiled. Fine looking woman. She was just a spoiled lady. And we catered to her, because we knew that she was kind of special.
What do you mean she was special? What does that mean?
As an example, she was the first salesperson at a store called Kresge's when they weren't hiring people of color.
Mm.
And the reason is that she spoke the language and her looks were a little different than most, but she got the job and she was a salesperson.
Do, do you mean because she was more elegant? Or what do you mean by that?
It could be said that she was a fashionista, wore high heels when she wanted to wear high heels, and my mom could dance.
Did your parents dance together?
Anywhere there was music, they would cut a rug.
Mm. What kind of dancing?
The Lindy Hop, they would do that. He didn't throw her over his shoulder or anything like that, but they would dance. He loved this lady, and I think she loved him a lot too.
Did they teach you and Aunt Claudel how to dance?
Dancing when it's done in the house, it's like osmosis.
Hmm.
It just kind of seeps and you just learn. But my sister taught me how to Latin dance
Where did your sister teach you? Did she teach you in her room or in the living room in 4E? Where did these dance lessons happen?
in the living room.
Because that's where you taught me to Latin dance was in our living room in the Bronx.
Right, that's where she taught me. That's where she taught me. You know, the interesting thing I'm thinking about. You forced me to think about my dad, and I was thinking, that belt that I always talked about that could take the skin off your bones.
Yes, when you were
You know that,
threatening us with spankings that never
right?
happened.
That is correct. My dad had that belt.
And so did you and your sister both get spanked with the belt? Did you get whooped
Spankings, he believed in it, and I guess that's where I learned to run in my room.
from your dad? That must have been really hard getting spankings, getting hit by your dad when you were young.
I still, but I also think that at the time it was what parents did.
Yeah.
I know in today's market that won't wash, but at the time, those were the ground rules that you lived under. And he certainly taught me a lot about being a man. And I think that that was so very, very important, not only for him, but for me. And I had a very deep love for him.
Mm,
And he for me.
mm. It makes me wonder, like, what was he surviving? What kind of spankings did he get as a little boy that he learned to use that tool as a dad? This that kind of stuff is passed down, right?
You know, he grew up in Harlem. He was one of three brothers. And so he had to He was the oldest, but he had to set examples, and he had to fight a lot, you know, which is another story altogether. The fighting then and the fighting now is so totally different. I once had two black eyes, at the same time.
Did you get in a lot of fights on Monument?
Early in my life, I did. After I started running, you know, maybe I ran away from him. I don't know, but no. When I began to have a kind of a reputation, you don't mess with Jet.
Okay, let's talk about Jet. So that was your nickname. You've mentioned running. You've mentioned running from your dad and running in fights. Was running something that you discovered kind of as a survival tool, or was it something that you got introduced to in gym class? Like, how did you fall in love with running? Because running was a big part of your life. And did you run in Fort Greene projects? Did you run on Monument Walk?
Absolutely. Oh, we used to have races in the project.
Mm,
My sister, until I was 12, could beat me. She could beat
mm-hmm.
me running. She was really a good athlete. Such a shame, that she wasn't allowed to kind of flourish like that.
Mm.
But I discovered running by accident. I was really a swimmer. My first medal was for swimming.
I didn't know that. How old were you when you got your first medal for swimming?
I was 10 or 11. So that was my first medal. And boy, so I thought I was going to be a swimmer. Wrong.
Why did it change?
I discovered that once I got into it, I could really do it.
Dad, what do you love about running?
That's funny. I love to perspire. I love to be dripping wet. Seriously. I loved when I was in really great shape to be stripped down to my shorts, barefoot, and run on the grass like I was Hercules, like I felt like the wind was blowing in my hair. It made me feel very, very exhilarated. And it tested my my physical being. It sent me to the University of Pittsburgh, which was a really wonderful experience and different.
When you left to go to the University of Pittsburgh, did it make you think differently about the street that you grew up on? What was it like to come back home to Monument after you left it?
The University of Pittsburgh, there were only 125 people of color. So it was a new experience for me in terms of just the total exposure.
Mm,
And it kind of made Fort Greene a little smaller, a little more narrow in terms of my thinking about Fort
mm,
Greene. It said to me that I would not remain
mm,
in Fort Greene all of
mm,
my life, that uh, I was not, and not that it was bad, but I wasn't going back.
mm. Were there things that you missed or appreciated more about it too? Like, were there traditions at Fort Greene that you didn't have once you went to college, or people, certain kinds of people or connections?
Kara, and I can only tell you the story. I escaped in my youth by not being somewhere where a person was killed.
Mm,
It was New Year's Eve, and I had to spend it with my parents. Otherwise, I would have been there, and otherwise, my whole story would be different.
had you been invited to go out with those friends?
Yes, they called me from my window, and they asked me, said, "Hey, Jet, come on, let's hang."
And Jet was your nickname because of how fast you ran?
That is correct. I said, "I can't. It's New Year's Eve, and I have to be with my family. Now that was a rule.
Mm.
Holidays, you spent with your family. And so I said I can't. And so, but they understood and they went out and they killed a sailor in the Navy
Mm.
Yard.
Mm.
Kara, I would have been with them.
You do take holidays very seriously, Dad. You are a big holiday person. I feel like this story is helping me understand why holidays and family time mean so much to you.
I think you're right. Holidays I like family.
So, Dad, we're gonna play a game of Never Have I Ever with three fingers.
Right?
Ready? And you have to say things that you really have never done, but you have to be honest. They have to be things that you've really never done on the street you grew up on. And then if you've done it, you lower your finger. Okay?
Okay. Um, I've never been to Africa.
Oh, you got me. Okay. Um, never have I ever hopped a fence to swim somewhere.
I have. I have.
I know. Your turn. I mean, I didn't know, but I guessed. Your
Um,
turn.
Never have I had peanut butter and jelly.
Is that true?
No.
Yeah, you can't lie and never have I ever. Try
Oh,
again.
never have I swam with crocodiles.
Well, that's cheating. I didn't see any crocodiles, but I knew there were crocodiles in that river in
That's so then
Jamaica.
that's
Okay.
right.
Okay. Never have I ever eaten chitlins on the street that I grew up on or anywhere.
I have eaten chitlins anytime I can find them. I love chitlins.
Okay,
I
your
like chitlins.
turn. So now we're both down to one, right?
That's right. Have I ever played a wall?
You have to say, never have I ever.
Never have I ever played a wall.
Oh, that's
Have you
dirty,
ever
Dad. That's
I
super
know,
dirty.
I know, I
Yes, I
know,
have. I played a
I know
wall.
you.
I was really good at
Ta-da,
it.
ta-da, ta-da.
Dad, if the story of your life was a fable, like a children's fable, and it started once upon a time, what would the first two or three sentences of the story of your life be?
Once upon a time, there was a boy who could run faster than anyone in the city, in the state, and almost in the nation. It allowed him to move from the projects to an absolutely different and another world. And later in life, we learned just how different that world was from where he grew up.
So this season on Street You Grew Up On, we have some extra financial support, and we're able to allow each of our guests to donate funds to an organization that means a lot to them. And you chose the Bronx Children's Museum. Can you tell us a little bit about the museum and why you chose it?
Absolutely. Every borough had a children's museum except the Bronx. And that was unconscionable. It really was. My wife of 50 years was one of the stalwarts in putting the museum together. She knew that we were missing something that our children absolutely should have. The Bronx is not a stepchild. The Bronx is not a second class citizen. The Bronx is a borough and it's the home of hip hop. It's the boogie down Bronx. It's all of those really very, very special things. And they deserve. deserved care, a children's museum.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on Street You Grew Up On. That was so fun. I learned so much about my dad. I hope that you did too. And the fact that he was recording that on the street that I grew up on is kind of amazing. Make sure that you check him out in lots of his upcoming projects. In the past on Simpson Street, he's done live in front of a studio audience with us. Now Street You Grew Up On, also Little Fires Everywhere. And he will soon appear in Unprisoned, a new series that we have coming to Hulu. So thanks so much. Make sure that you like and subscribe and keep joining us. Keep walking down these streets that people grow up on because it's amazing. We love having you.
You made it very special. Thank you.
Bye.